Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Inquisition Update. My name's Tom Fress. I'll be your host for the next hour. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to continue reading and discussing the book Codeword Barbelon, 666 Danger in the Vatican, the Sons of Loyola, and Their Plans for World Domination. A very, very important book by P.D. Stuart. You can get it at www.luxverbi.org. That's LUXVERBI.org. We departed from the reading and discussion of this book for an interview with Bill Hughes yesterday, continuation of our study of Revelation chapter 13, describing how the United States is the second beast in that Bible prophecy, and the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman Empire, being the first beast. Now we're going to continue in our reading and discussion of the book. We're in chapter 43, and since I didn't get very far in this particular chapter Thursday, I want to begin at the beginning, just a couple paragraphs back up. And if you're reading along, this is on page 429 of the book. The title of it is The Musclehead Revolution, Protestants and the U.S. Supreme Court. Very important chapter in this book. Begins with a couple quotes. Extra ecclesiam nulla salus, which is Latin, means outside the Catholic Church there is no salvation. That's the official teaching of canon law, the Roman Catholic Church. Outside the Roman Catholic Church there is no salvation. So according to the Roman Catholic Church, if you want eternal life, you have to get it through the Roman Catholic Church. No Jesus involved in that, is there? Now, another quote from our very renowned Protestant preacher of days gone by, Charles Haddon Spurgeon. This was July 24th, 1859. He said, "How the saints are helping the devil." Now, that quote would have been appropriate for the previous chapter also, where we talked about Freemasonry and how it serves the Vatican unwittingly or wittingly, as the case may be. Another partial quote here, not cited to any author. It says, "The Jesuit chloroform has stupefied them all, and we must, and it is the purpose of P.D. Stuart and myself also, to expose this Jesuit chloroform that stupefies us all." Now, we're going to be talking about the Christian right today. It's time for us to understand what the Christian right is. The author begins, he says, "In this wide-ranging conspiracy, it would be cowardly of me were I to shy away from the achievements of a powerful and motley association of quote-unquote Christians called the religious right. This quasi-religious movement," notice he calls it a quasi-religious movement, "this quasi-religious movement has as its stated goal reclaiming America for Christ." This sounds noble indeed, but we shall see that in this grand work, the quote-unquote Christian Freemasons, the regular Catholic priests, and the Jesuits are all working closely together. Did you catch that? In this grand work of reclaiming America for Christ, it is the quote-unquote Christian Freemasons, and I would just add the word quote-unquote Protestant or evangelical Freemasons, since it's predominantly a Protestant organization or a evangelical organization in name only, by the way. It's Luciferianism, it's Satanism, it's not Christianity by any means. It is a religion, and Lucifer is its god. That's what we determine right from the very words of Albert Pike, the supreme pontiff of Freemasonry. He says these quote-unquote Christian Freemasons and regular Catholic priests and the Jesuits are all working closely together to build this global kingdom for the Pope. That's what they're doing. He continues, he says, in order to achieve its objectives, the Christian Coalition, also known as the Religious Right, the Christian Coalition, the Religious Right, has put together a battle plan to take over the United States Supreme Court. Yeah. The Religious Right wants to take over the Supreme Court. Quote, I want to be invisible. I do guerrilla warfare, unquote, declared Ralph Reed, the head of the Religious Right, the now disgraced former leader of the Christian Coalition, about the religious right's political tactics in 1997. The Jesuits, you see, do their best work in secret. And the author is clearly suggesting that Ralph Reed, the leader of this so-called Christian right, was either Jesuit-influenced or a Jesuit himself. Now, it says those in the religious right range from Catholics to Episcopalians. And by the way, my personal opinion is that between Catholicism and Episcopalianism, there's nothing but a thin coat of paint, so it's from the same diabolical family. To charismatics, to Mormons, a wide spectrum within which exist many doctrinal differences. Strange bedfellows indeed, but then this is a marriage of convenience. In other words, they don't care if they get in bed with the devil. It's a marriage of convenience. No loyalty to Christ. It's an all-skate. It's ecumenical. They're all going to get together and help to try to control or to get control of the Supreme Court, and they have. It says this confederacy of expediency, he calls it, comprised powerful organizations like the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, Vision America, Grassfire.org. The Traditional Values Coalition, Concerned Women for America, Focus on the Family, and the so-called American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, right? Collectively known as the Religious Right. Not in the sense of being correct, necessarily, but rather as being extreme on many issues. This confederacy has as its Pied Pipers the likes of 33rd degree Luciferian James Dobson. I'll add the word Luciferian. The author didn't include it, but it's the truth. Apostate Protestant John Hagee, Kevin McCulloch, and Dr. James Kennedy, Florida-based television ministry Coral Ridge. Dr. Kennedy also owns the Center for Reclaiming America for Christ, a title which betrays its intent. Let me tell you something. These people aren't going to take over this country for Christ. They're going to take it over for Antichrist. It's like I told a friend of mine in a discussion the other day. There's going to be no Christian control of this government. There may be a papal control of this government, but there's never going to be a Bible-based Christian control of this country. You can bet on that. Rome will make sure that that doesn't happen. And look at the facts on the ground. With the ecumenical movement and the evangelicals running headlong back to Mama, the Roman Catholic Church, Rome has all the momentum. If there's going to be any so-called Christian taking back this country for Christianity, it's going to be taking back this country for Roman Catholicism. Evangelism or evangelicalism or Protestantism has completely lost its way in this country. It's no longer the influence. The ecumenical movement, the Roman Catholic Church, these odd bedfellows are all working for the same goal. They're working for an earthly kingdom, not a heavenly one. Now it says the religious right, judicial coup de grace. It says the religious right is armed, deadly, and on the march. Thanks to the stellar efforts of this body today, for the first time in American history, we have the majority of the U.S. Supreme Court justices being active, fervent Roman Catholics. 5 of the 9 justices, according to this author at the time of the writing of this book. Now there are 6 Roman Catholics, 5 of which I am told are members of the radical papist group Opus Dei. So what Christianity controls the Supreme Court if 6 of the 9 are Roman Catholic? Is that Christianity? That's not what we're learning in this book. And that's not what history teaches. And that's not what the Bible teaches. Remember, the first beast got its power and seat and great authority from the dragon. It's the dragon who now controls the Supreme Court of the United States. It says the Catholic justices on the Supreme Court now have the supermajority vote on the court. This novel situation is almost entirely due to the religious right, the evangelicals' political lobby. They've gotten together with their whorish, Romish mother, and they're taking over the country. And it's not Christianity they're going to achieve. It's Catholicism for this country. You just watch and see. It's already happened. Now, this religious confederacy makes the bold claim to be fighting a war not just for the soul of the American nation, but for the world. Reader, the religious right claims to be the conscience and voice of America and the world. But in the words of Senator McCain, they are in fact agents of intolerance. And he would certainly know, because his wife is a devout Roman Catholic, and she's all about this Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order, and you can bet John McCain does as he's told. It says, and they now have 5 Catholic justices on their side, the 5 horsemen of the apocalypse, which is a liberty the author takes. I don't agree with him on that, but for purposes of this discussion, I'll tolerate it. But there are now 6, and Rome has control of the Supreme Court. And what's the business of the Supreme Court? Interpreting the laws of this land. And you can bet there'll be a Catholic interpretation of our laws from here on out. They're going to make it Roman Catholic canon law. As is stated in the Pope's encyclical, Caritas in Veritate, it is a matter of excommunicable consequences if every Roman Catholic in this country does not use his secular job to help bring about this New World Order. Every devout Roman Catholic has now been commanded by the Pope in that encyclical that it is a matter equivalent to the magisterium of the church, that they use their occupations to help bring America into conformity to the Pope's new social order. Now, I hope you listened to the broadcast when we covered that encyclical, Caritas in Veritate. For those who haven't, I suggest you go to the website of Richard Bennett, a Roman Catholic priest for 22 years, who read that encyclical, who's well qualified to read that encyclical and understand its language and to interpret it in words that you and I can understand. And you can go to his website at www.bereanbeacon.org, BereanBeacon.org, and at the top left-hand side of the page, you'll see an abbreviated form, the title of this document, an analysis of this encyclical called Pope's Plan on Organizing. Click on that, Pope's Plan on Organizing, and it'll download a PDF file, and you can read it for yourself. It's about 9 pages, won't take you long. Study that. That's where we're headed in the United States of America, and it clearly commands every Roman Catholic in this country to use whatever power is vested in him, in his office, in his job, to help bring in this new social order, which is just clandestine terms for the takeover of America. It says this religious confederacy makes the bold claim to be fighting a war not just for the soul of the American nation, but for the world. And it says, reader, the religious right claims to be the conscience and voice of America and the world, in the words of Senator John McCain. They are, in fact, agents of intolerance, and you better believe that's true, because when they get control, it's going to be just like it was in the Dark Ages. No religious toleration for God's true people. We're going to be labeled religious fanatics, fundamentalists, potential terrorists, domestic terrorists, any negative term that they choose to call us, that's what they're going to call us. Rome's going to return to the bloody days of the Inquisition here in America. Protestantism is going to be regarded as a radical, Bible-based fundamentalist scourge that needs to be removed from off the earth. Now, if you think I'm just blowing smoke or being melodramatic, you haven't read that encyclical, and you don't know anything about history. Again, to comprehend where we're headed in this country and the world, remember the religious right is not only speaking for America, but it speaks for the world. Get a copy of the video, A Lamp in the Dark. Just Google the title. There's a website that will give you that entire video free. You can watch the video right online. A Lamp in the Dark by Christopher Pinto. This is where we're heading. And it says they now have 5 Catholic justices on their side, 5 horsemen of the apocalypse, now being 6 in control. 6 Roman Catholics in control of the Supreme Court. It says one of the most outspoken men in this evangelical papal confederacy, finally chosen words to describe him, evangelical papal confederacy, is Kevin McCulloch. McCulloch proudly stated on WMCA Radio 570 and 970, New York, that it was the political muscle of the religious right that got the new Catholic justices nominated and appointed to the United States Supreme Court. Mr. McCulloch is a talk radio host, syndicated columnist, and author of the book Musclehead Revolution, a very intolerant and narrow man. On February 12, 2007, McCulloch revealed his colors when he said, quote, "Of all the popes in my lifetime, I like this one, Pope Benedict XVI. That's my kind of musclehead." Now, what's it getting at? Well, Pope Benedict XVI was a Nazi. And Pope Benedict XVI was a Roman Catholic priest. And he became the prefect for the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. He was the man who ran the Holy Roman Inquisition. Yes, it still exists, as many of you know if you're a regular listener. The Holy Office of the Inquisition, that institution of the Roman Catholic Church that killed hundreds of millions of Bible believers over the centuries, was headed up by Benedict XVI. I call him Rack-em-up Ratzinger, Joe Ratzinger. Rack-em-up Ratzinger. They called him, the Catholics called him, God's Rottweiler. Appropriate terms for a bloodthirsty killer, because that's what they must be if they're going to run the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. They must be prepared to exterminate heretics. Now, they soft-soap that organization today just to lull us to sleep. But trust me, it is just as bloodthirsty as it's ever been in the world, and we're going to see that office go into full swing right here in Protestant America. It says another musclehead who broadcasts through WMCA radio is J.A. Sekulow. Mr. Sekulow, the chief legal counsel of the American Center for Law and Justice. You want to see Jay Sekulow? Look where he's most popular. EWTN, the official Roman Catholic channel, and also Fox News, the other Catholic channel They feature him a lot, all the time on those two broadcasts. They are working for Rome. Jay Sekulow works for the Roman Catholic Church. He calls himself Christian, so no one will suspect that he takes his orders from Rome. Okay, and on September 28, 2006, speaking of the appointment of 2 new Catholic justices to the Supreme Court, Mr. Sekulow said, quote, "We beat them in the halls of power. We beat them in the courts of public opinion, and we beat them in membership as well," unquote. He said this publicly during one of his regular telephone call-in programs on WMCA Radio 570. His actual words were, quote, "We worked so hard to put these 2 Catholic justices on the bench of the Supreme Court," unquote. It's incredible and a great discredit to the American democracy to think these men can boast that behind the scenes they are the allies in Congress. They and their allies in Congress were the ones responsible for jobbing into office the highest judges in the land. During that same telephone call-in show, Mr. Sekulow was very proud of his unconstitutional shenanigan. The radio caller, encouraged thereby, responded to Mr. Sekulow by saying, quote, "Conservatives have had control of all the departments of government for many years. We have an opportunity now to carry out our aims," unquote. There goes the great myth that the Supreme Court justices are nominated and appointed based solely on merit. There is a religious agenda on the Supreme Court. It is a Vatican agenda to control the Supreme Court. And when they get control of the Supreme Court, the institution that interprets the law of this country, you're going to see an entirely different nature overwhelm our government. And when you put that in addition to the fact that Barack Obama's cabinet is almost entirely Roman Catholic and that the Roman Catholics control the hierarchy of the Congress, the leadership roles, the appropriations committees in Congress, what you have is a papal government. What you have is a government that is totally morally obligated to obey the Pope. For the first time in U.S. history, there is not one Protestant on the Supreme Court. You won't hear that talked about on any broadcasts on amateur radio or internet radio or the mainstream media or the alternative media. Not one Protestant on the Supreme Court. Said the judicial appointees to which Mr. Sekulow and his listeners were alluded to were the Honorable Chief Judge John G. Roberts and Associate Justice Samuel Alito, also known as Scalito, is kind of a parody on Scalia's name, who was an Italian Roman Catholic, totally devoted to his Pope. It says these 2 men were both lobbied for by the religious right. Can we call the religious right a Christian organization and educate anybody about what's really going on? It's a papist agenda. The religious right is Roman Catholic. You're listening to Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Have you seen the Left Behind movies? Have you read the Left Behind fictional book series? Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. Because they see the world stage shaping to fulfill what they have been led to believe is sound biblical interpretation, a left behind rapture scenario, this false view of prophecy is reinforced in the mind, not only of its adherents, but also includes those who have been merely exposed to the specific media. Is it possible that false prophecy can be fulfilled? The rapture theories have always been in dispute. Pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib disputes have risen up in exclusively evangelical circles of recent history, so that when true believers don't suddenly disappear, this element will easily go by the wayside when all see a new Jewish temple begin to be built. Will this be part of the great delusion that will come upon the whole earth? It seems that this great prophetic delusion has already overcome practically the entire American evangelical and Christian world. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. To learn more, visit crosstheborder.org. That's CROSS, crosstheborder.org.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Okay, welcome back to the second half of Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. If you enjoy Inquisition Update, please support Inquisition Update by supporting FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Now continuing, it says the judicial appointees to which Mr. Sekulow and his listeners were alluding to were the Honorable Chief Justices John G. Roberts and Associate Justice Samuel Alito. These two men were both lobbied for by the religious right. These are not just political appointments, but sectarian promotions based on an unwritten but identifiable test. The appointees must be religious conservatives and right-wing Roman Catholics. That's the test for the Supreme Court now. The appointees must be religious conservatives and right-wing Roman Catholics. Now, I've got an acquaintance, I won't call him a friend, but an acquaintance on amateur radio is all the time denouncing the Republic Christians that are in control of the government. Republic Christians, he calls them. Well, he's half right. They call themselves Christians, but they're not Christians, they're Catholics. So the best term would be Republipapists, Mike. They are Republipapists. And not having the benefit of loving the Lord Jesus Christ or loving His gospel and understanding His prophecy, my amateur radio friend does not have the wisdom that God's people have by reading and understanding the prophecies. We know this New World Order is a papal New World Order. It's not Christian by any stretch of the imagination. And so my friend will continue to call them Republic Christians, but they are Republipapists who control the government of this country. It says, this fact reveals their shibboleth, a sectarian agenda that was confirmed by David Kirkpatrick in the New York Times, who reported that in 2004, quote, a team of conservative grassroots, that is, religious organizers, public relations specialists, and legal strategists met to prepare a battle plan to ensure any Supreme Court vacancies were filled by like-minded jurists after their own mold, judicial caddies. Sean Rushton, executive director of the Committee for Justice, whose organization was formed to support President Bush's nominees, said both men's judicial philosophies, that is, that of Justice Roberts and Alito, are essentially the same. The New York Times article also quotes another member of the religious right activist group as saying that they had boxed in, that is, gotten control of opposition to any White House nominees. In other words, no one other than John Roberts and Samuel Alito were ever going to be appointed to the two vacancies on the Supreme Court. The member further boasted that the religious right had, quote-unquote, destroyed the nomination of Harriet Miers for Justice of the Supreme Court. The significance of this deceptive strategy was summed up nicely by one of their spokesmen, Dr. James Dobson, Focus on the Family, 33rd degree Luciferian, who was quoted in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, and I'll just tell you, I have some experience with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. It's owned by a Grover. His membership, his name shows up on the membership roster of the Grove out in San Francisco, California, Bohemian Grove. Walter E. Hussman, Jr., Arkansas Democrat Gazette, saying, quote, this is obviously a great day for us, the appointment of their two judges for the Supreme Court. And Arkansas also is a Rockefeller state. He's a papist, Knight of Malta. He's the leader of the Bilderbergers. He's a leader of the Trilateral Commission. He helped form the United Nations. He's a papist par excellence. Arkansas is controlled by the Rockefeller family. They also control the Arkansas Democrat Gazette through Walter E. Hussman III, the ones who pushed through all this bogus negative press about Tony Alamo. He says, further, he says, we've not only been working toward this day, but praying for it for 20 years. Although most Americans still don't know it, those two appointments were seismic events, a judicial coup de grace. The appointment of these two Roman Catholic judges to the Supreme Court by the Senate Judiciary Committee was greatly applauded by the Jesuit law professor Douglas W. Kmike, who wrote, quote, the key reason Sam Alito joining John Roberts would be historic is that it has a good chance of fulfilling the founding vision as understood by the religious right of the Supreme Court. Ronald Reagan put his trust in two young lawyers, John Roberts and Sam Alito, and they are not inclined to disappoint. Now, what significance was Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan was an Irish Roman Catholic, came from a long line of Irish Roman Catholics. He discovered his Irish Roman Catholic roots before he left office, and he served his Pope as an honorary Knight of Malta and as an honorary 33rd degree Freemason. He's the one who handed over this country lock, stock, and barrel to the papacy. Ronald Wilson Reagan. And he helped groom John Roberts and Sam Alito for the court of this land. He says, what does he mean by John Roberts and Sam Alito are not inclined to disappoint? Disappoint about what? Not disappoint whom? As I said earlier, Rome is in a superior power alliance with the United States of America, for as Ronald Wilson Reagan told the National Catholic Education Association in April of 1982, quote, I'm grateful for your help in shaping American policy to reflect God's will. And I will look forward to further guidance from His Holiness Pope John Paul II. Unquote. So he equates God's will with whatever Pope John Paul II wants. And that is the defining characteristic of every devout Roman Catholic in this country, and especially those on the Supreme Court. The will of God is the will of the Pope. Now, what would you think if they just dismissed all 9 of the Supreme Court justices of this country and let Pope Benedict XVI interpret all the laws of this constitutional republic? What would you think? It'd be pretty obvious, wouldn't it? But it's just as obvious. Who controls the Supreme Court of the United States, with 6 of them being devout Roman Catholics, Opus Dei members, and offset only by 3 crypto Jews. The Pope runs this country lock, stock, and barrel, and there's an Inquisition coming to this country the likes of which you can't even comprehend. He says, it seems, therefore, that these men, John Roberts and Samuel Alito, have formed some kind of a pact with the religious right by James Dobson, Dr. James Kennedy, J. Sekulow, etc., and the neo-conservative president who appointed them. We shall provide proof of this pact, and we shall show that the politicizing of the court did not happen by accident. It was the calculated acts of Ronald Reagan and later of George H.W. Bush Sr. to appoint right-wing Roman Catholic judges. J. Sekulow, the chief legal counsel of the ACLJ, who is an alumni of Pat Robertson's Regent College, and Pat Robertson also is a 33rd degree Freemason, and most certainly, if not a Jesuit himself, a Jesuit temporal coadjutor, Jesuit spiritual coadjutor, and was appointed by the Bush administration as an advisor for the appointment of the Supreme Court justices, has gone as far as to say that he believes judges should be chosen based on their religious beliefs. Not on their adherence to the Bible, but they should be appointed based on their religious beliefs. And let me tell you, if they equate God with the Pope, they'll rule at the behest of the Pope. He said it was this same J. Sekulow who said regarding Mr. Bush's previous high court nominee, quote, to interject John Roberts' Catholic faith to determine whether he's fit to serve in the Supreme Court would run afoul of the Constitution and Supreme Court precedent. Such tactics amount to a thinly masked variation of the formal, quote-unquote, religious tests for public office that have long been rejected as unconstitutional, unquote. So according to J. Sekulow, it's constitutional to appoint judges based on their religious beliefs, but it is unconstitutional to challenge their appointment based on those same religious beliefs. Disingenuity truly has no limits. Hypocrisy has no limits. And inconsistency is its hallmark. Vintage J. Sekulow, always gliding over his own contradictions. The two justices appointed in 2005 are under the influence of Jesuits and have been for most of their lives. Both Justice Antonin Scalia and Chief Justice John Roberts attended Jesuit Georgetown University, the mother of all Jesuit universities in America. Scalia and Roberts have also been adjunct professors at Georgetown. Why is this any significance? It's known that the rectors and professors of the Jesuit colleges are usually drawn from the rank of spiritual coadjutors of the Society of Jesus. They're Jesuit priests. Okay, so it would be surprising if Justice Roberts and Scalia were not Jesuit coadjutors themselves. Chief Justice Roberts is also a member of the Masonic Phi Beta Kappa. That's a secret society of the Greek-lettered sororities, fraternities in the prestigious Ivy League schools that serve the Pope. Secret societies within the universities cultivated in a Masonic-like organization to serve the Pope. They were not only most likely Jesuit coadjutors, but they are Phi Beta Kappa members, and Phi Beta Kappa was formed in 1776, the very year Adam Weishaupt launched the Illuminati. Remember, he talked about all these Masonic-type organizations that he was going to create. In fact, as we saw earlier, Phi Beta Kappa is an offshoot of the German Illuminati. And Justice Scalia attended Jesuit Xavier High School. Francis Xavier is one of the founding leaders of the Jesuit order. He was Ignatius Loyola's right-hand man back in 1534. After Xavier High School, Justice Scalia graduated to Georgetown University. On leaving Georgetown, Scalia studied at the University of Freiburg, Switzerland, another Jesuit institution whose origin can be traced back to 1582 with the founding of the Jesuit seminary at St. Michael. So we've got devout papists, thoroughly trained all their lives in Jesuit education systems. And their understanding is that the Pope is the vicar of Christ and he should have all the power and authority and privilege of Christ on earth, and that every man, woman, and child on the earth, in order to go to heaven, quote unquote, must obey the Pope. And that's not all. Being that they were Jesuit trained, they know that part of their object in bringing the Pope to world supremacy includes the extirpation and annihilation of Protestantism and Protestants. Read the Jesuit oath. Now he says, from all the above and aided by proper inferences, deductions, and working presumptions of law, it would not be entirely unreasonable for one to conclude that these two additions to the U.S. Supreme Court are well-trained agents of the Jesuits. Being former graduates of and also professors at Georgetown University, Roberts and Scalia are not only thoroughly schooled in Roman Catholicism, but, quote, poisoned with the maxims of the Jesuits. Do you find this statement objectionable? Consider the words of Jesuit General Kolvenbach in 1995, the past Supreme the past Grand Pope, or the Black Pope, Peter Hans Kolvenbach, in 1995, quote, "A Jesuit university must be faithful to both the noun university and to the adjective Jesuit." In other words, you have to be active. A Jesuit is active. Doesn't rest on his laurels. He's got a job to do. There's an aim to Jesuitism. They are the shock troopers of the Pope. They are the vanguard of the Pope's army. They are the secret agents, the special forces, the intelligence organization, the most lethal militia for the Pope. And it says, what is so significant about this? The question is by no means a trivial one. The noun Jesuit is bad enough, but the adjective Jesuit is even worse still. Self-serving, casuist, shameless imposters and double agents. Today, thanks to two of their agents, President Ronald Wilson Reagan and George W. Bush, 5 of the 9 justices in the Supreme Court are all Roman Catholics. Justice Roberts, Justice Alito, Antonin Scalia, Anthony Kennedy, and Clarence Thomas. And one of these 5, Justice Scalia, was singled out by the Times as a hero to the American right. That was published on May 2nd, 2004 in the New York Times. Why did Reagan and Bush have such a bias for appointing Catholic judges to the Supreme Court? If you doubt that the religious inclination of the current U.S. Supreme Court, then consider the fact that 4 of the 5 Catholic justices on the court attended the annual Red Mass in 2006 at the Catholic Cathedral in Northwest Washington. Even though there were around 1,000 people in attendance, Chief Justice John G. Roberts had a seat in the very first pew during the service of the Catholic Cathedral of St. Matthew the Apostle. Seated alongside the Chief Justice were the 3 legal musketeers, Justice Antonin Scalia, Anthony Kennedy, and Clarence Thomas, all ultra-conservative Roman Catholics. That means Council of Trent Roman Catholics. An ultra-conservative Roman Catholic is not an ecumenical Roman Catholic. He is not a Vatican II Roman Catholic. He is not a liberal Roman Catholic willing to thrust out his hand to a heretic. But these are traditional Tridentine Roman Catholics that know that the Church's official teaching under the Council of Trent is the extirpation and annihilation of Protestants. This fact reveals that the Catholic Church's influence over the United States Supreme Court justices. They have control. They show up at the Red Mass, for crying out loud. Named after Thomas More, an English persecutor of the saints, a brutal persecutor of Protestants. The Red Mass is dripping with Protestant blood, and the Supreme Court justices of this country pay homage to Thomas More and the bloodletting of Protestants in England when they attend that bloody Mass. But you're not supposed to know that. You're supposed to think the Red Mass is just something, a ritual that the law industry in this country participates in every year. It's not like a charity or a fundraiser or something. No. Its significance, if you fully comprehend what the Red Mass is and who participates in it and who its patron saint is, Thomas More, and the history behind it, the message behind the Red Mass would take your breath away. And yet it's done in plain sight of the cameras. But nobody dare talk about it. Nobody in the press dare tell you what I just told you about the Red Mass. In delivering his sermon at the 2006 Red Mass, Archbishop Donald W. Wuerl told the 4 Catholic Supreme Court justices that religious faith, quote, cannot be divorced from their religious antecedents or those who came before them. Okay, your service on the Supreme Court cannot be divorced from your Roman Catholic heritage. And it says, what did he mean by antecedents? His predecessors. Let us unpack the hidden message delivered in that code word, antecedents. The concise Oxford Dictionary defines antecedents as previous or priori, preceding thing or circumstance, a condition, proposition on which the other part depends, past history, unquote. So to what preceding thing or precondition or past history was Archbishop Worrell alluding, which in his opinion these judges cannot be divorced from? Religious faith. To what religious faith was he referring to? The answer to these questions must be plainly obvious to any intelligent person. Here we have a Catholic archbishop in a Catholic cathedral lecturing to 4 ultra-conservative Tridentine Roman Catholic judges of the Supreme Court about the need to ensure that the highest judges in the land, they do not divorce themselves of the religious faith from its religious precedents. Can we reasonably imagine that by religious faith the Archbishop meant anything other than the Roman Catholic Church's religious dogmas on what constitutes morally authoritative law, namely the Catholic dogma on abortion, limited civil rights based on Roman Catholic canon law, and the Pope as the sole interpreter of morals and religious faith? All the Catholic justices on the Supreme Court were appointed by 2 pro-Roman Catholic presidents, Ronald Wilson Reagan and George W. Bush Jr. It was Reagan who reestablished diplomatic relations with the Vatican. It was George W. Bush who said that the best way to honor Pope John Paul II is to take his teaching seriously and put his words and teachings into action here in America. Where is the separation of church and state in that? He said the best way to honor Pope John Paul II was to take his teaching seriously and put his words and teachings into action here in America. We're going to put the biblical Antichrist teachings into action in America. How are they going to do it? By getting control of the Supreme Court, by reinterpreting the laws of this land with papist glasses on their face when they read the law and interpret the law. He says this is a challenge we must accept. This is a challenge we must accept. We'll talk about it more on the program tomorrow. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.